The tension in Eastern Europe has entered a new phase as Belarus stands on the edge of chaos, with the shadow of Russia hanging heavily over it, while Ukraine quietly maneuvers behind the scenes. The revolt that began in whispers has now grown into open defiance, and the once unshakable rule of Alexander Lukashenko is slipping through his hands. Soldiers who once marched proudly under his command now hesitate to follow orders, and some have already joined the rising movement against him. The cities of Belarus, once calm and orderly, are now filled with the sounds of chance explosions and unrest. This is no longer just a national crisis, it has become a regional struggle of power and influence where every move is watched by Moscow, Kiev, and the entire world. Outside the borders, the atmosphere is electric with fear and anticipation. Russia is watching every development with cold calculation, knowing that if Belarus collapses, it will lose its last solid foothold between Moscow and NATO territory. Putin has invested years of political capital and military resources in keeping Lukashenko in power, and the current revolt threatens to undo all of that. Russian intelligence operatives have already been deployed quietly within Belarusian command structures, trying to maintain control, but cracks are widening faster than they can be sealed. At the same time, Ukraine is moving silently, taking advantage of the chaos. Drones fly along the Belarusian border, collecting data, while special reconnaissance teams monitor troop movements. Kiev is careful not to provoke open confrontation, but its presence is undeniable and its intentions are strategic. The European Union and NATO countries are watching closely, preparing sanctions and emergency plans in case the unrest spreads across the region. Inside Belarus, the situation is far more grim. The people have reached their breaking point after decades of fear, propaganda, and repression. The air in Minsk smells of smoke and tear gas, while protesters flood the streets waving red and white flags that symbolize resistance and hope. The army is divided, some units still loyal to the government and others quietly defecting. Reports have surfaced of soldiers refusing to open fire on civilians, and local commanders are struggling to keep control. The regime has tried to shut down the internet and block social media, but information still flows through underground networks and encrypted messages. The police are exhausted and demoralized, many of them realizing that the old system cannot last much longer. Within government offices, panic is spreading as officials destroy documents, delete communications, and plan escape routes toward Russia. Lukashenko himself appears increasingly isolated and nervous. His televised speeches are filled with anger and desperation as he blames foreign agents, NATO conspiracies, and Ukrainian saboteurs for the uprising. His words no longer inspire fear or loyalty among his people, and even his inner circle has started to lose faith. Rumors are spreading that some of his top generals are secretly negotiating with opposition groups to secure their own safety. Russia continues to express public support, but Moscow's patience is running thin. The Kremlin has seen this pattern before in other collapsing regimes, and Putin knows how quickly loyalty can vanish when power begins to fade. Behind closed doors, discussions are taking place about possible replacements or the creation of a puppet government that can protect Russian interests without relying on a weakened Lukashenko. The performance of Belarus as a state is deteriorating rapidly. Infrastructure is failing, electricity blackouts are increasing, and the economy is in freefall. Factories have stopped production, and foreign investors have fled the country. The Belarusian ruble has lost much of its value, and inflation is spiraling out of control. On the streets, basic goods are becoming scarce, and long lines form outside stores for bread, fuel, and medicine. The government can no longer control public perception because independent journalists and online activists continue to post videos and updates from across the country showing the real picture of a regime collapsing from within. International news agencies are confirming that Russia has begun moving unmarked military convoys toward the Belarus border, pretending to be humanitarian aid, while in reality they are reinforcing key strategic points. In the midst of this chaos, Ukraine's intelligence operations are quietly achieving results. Their strategy is subtle and deliberate, using technology rather than force. Satellite imagery, cyber operations, and psychological tactics are being used to exploit the growing rift between Belarusian commanders and Moscow's advisors. Ukrainian analysts believe that if Belarus becomes unstable, it will force Russia to divert its attention and resources from the war in Ukraine, giving Kiev a crucial advantage on the battlefield. Ukrainian officials deny any direct involvement, but their fingerprints can be seen in the precision and timing of the rebellion. They are fighting not with tanks or missiles, but with information and timing, and that is proving to be just as powerful. The safety mechanisms that once protected the Belarusian regime have begun to fail completely. The security agencies once feared for their brutality are now facing internal sabotage. Communications between units are being jammed or hacked, and several intelligence officers have disappeared mysteriously. Lukashenko's personal security has been reinforced with Russian guards, and armored vehicles are constantly stationed near his residence. He is said to sleep in different locations each night, fearing assassination or capture. His family members have reportedly been moved toward Russian territory under heavy protection. The fear that he once used to control others has now consumed him entirely, and his authority now rests only on survival rather than leadership. What makes this entire scenario unique is how it connects to the broader war between Russia and Ukraine. Belarus is not just another small country facing domestic trouble, it is the bridge that links Moscow's military strategy to Europe. Losing Belarus means losing control of a vital buffer zone and exposing Russia's northern flank to NATO and Ukraine. This revolt, therefore, carries immense significance for global power dynamics. It shows how fragile autocratic systems become when public exhaustion meets external pressure. Another unique element is the use of modern digital warfare, where protesters use encrypted communication and real-time coordination through mobile networks. The opposition has learned from past revolts, and this time they are organized, smart, and motivated. The cost of this uprising is already high. Hundreds of protesters have been detained, and reports of disappearances are growing daily. The economy is shattered, and international trade is nearly frozen. Russia is facing its own cost in maintaining influence as sanctions tighten and military morale drops. Ukraine understands that destabilizing Belarus could alter the balance of war and weaken Moscow's ability to focus on its southern front. For Western countries, this is a dangerous but potentially strategic opportunity to weaken Russian dominance in Eastern Europe. Every player is cautious because a single misstep could turn Belarus into another full-scale conflict zone. If you are watching this deep analysis on Red Alert Conflict, make sure to subscribe and stay connected, because the situation in Belarus is changing every hour, and our updates will keep you ahead of the global power shifts shaping this crisis. As the night grows darker across Belarus, gunfire echoes in the distance and armored vehicles block key roads leading to the capital. Protesters build barricades using buses and debris, while soldiers stand uncertain between duty and conscience. Russian drones circle quietly above the border, gathering intelligence. Inside the Kremlin, Putin sits with his advisors studying maps and reports as they debate whether to intervene directly or allow Lukashenko to fall. Kiev continues to act in silence, expanding its intelligence network and strengthening its defensive lines. The balance of power in Eastern Europe is shifting invisibly but decisively. By now, it has become clear that Lukashenko's rule cannot survive much longer. Even if Russia manages to install a replacement, the aura of fear that sustained the regime has vanished forever. The people of Belarus have realized their strength, and once that realization takes root, it cannot be undone. This revolt might not bring immediate peace or democracy, but it has already rewritten the political reality of the region. Moscow's shadow still stretches over Minsk, but its grip is weakening, and the cracks are visible to everyone. In conclusion, the unrest in Belarus is not an isolated event. It is part of a much larger transformation in Eastern Europe, where old regimes are collapsing under the weight of their own corruption and control. Ukraine's quiet moves have proven that patience and intelligence can sometimes achieve what armies cannot. Russia now faces the challenge of protecting its influence while avoiding another war front. For Belarus, the path ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the people are no longer afraid. Their courage has become the spark that could change the map of power in Europe for years to come. Before you leave, make sure to subscribe to Red Alert Conflict, because every update we bring connects you to the hidden side of global events, from Belarus to Ukraine, from Moscow to NATO. Stay alert, stay informed, and always remember that in modern warfare, silence can sometimes be more powerful than 1,000 explosions.